Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the Jernix Project Execute webinar series. Today's webinar is entitled Social Media for Project Managers. We are pleased to have you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We appreciate you spending time both learning about new issues in project management and promoting and extending your career in project management. We hope that today's webinar will enable you to take your expertise to the next level. My name is James Bronner. I'm the Director of Marketing with Jernix. It's certainly my pleasure to be the host for today's webinar. Let me give you a few housekeeping items for today. First of all, you can receive a full PDU for attendance at today's webinar. All you'll need to do is something very simple. We're going to send out a follow-up email after the webinar, and when you receive that, if you'll just simply hit reply and ask for your PDU certificate, happy to create those and send those out. Just give us a couple of days to customize those and get those out to you. And then finally, you're going to be able to submit questions online during the presentation today. Just click on the Questions tab. You can submit questions anytime during the presentation. In fact, Michelle encourages your participation throughout. And so when a topic comes up that prompts you to submit a question, feel free to do so, and I probably will be interrupting Michelle, and we'll try to answer some of those questions in the middle of the presentation, and if we don't have time during some of the transitions, then we'll put those in at the end. Our agenda is quite straightforward. First, our guest presenter, Michelle Cullison, who is the president of Daystar New Media and a consultant in the area of helping folks to extend and enhance their abilities in the social media area, is going to be working with us today and telling us all about how we can use social media in the area of project management. And then following her presentation, we'll begin responding to any remaining questions that were not answered during the interim of the presentation itself. So I'm going to try to keep you right at 1 hour today because I recognize your time is valuable. So let's jump right on in. I'll hand over the reins to Michelle and we'll get started. Michelle?
Hi, James, and welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. And today we're going to talk about social media, and what I do specifically is help businesses and business professionals expand from a website presence from a website to a web presence where you can engage your audience, that being a private audience or public audience, and build strong relationships and enhance communication, because that's what we all need to do, right? Project managers and as business professionals in general. So let's dive right in. I have a question for you today. My question is, where were you in 1991? Where were you in 1991? Think about that for a minute. When you have that pictured in your mind, I want you to raise your hand using the Raise Your Hand tool in your GoToWebinar panel that is on your desktop. Picture your desk, picture your phone, picture your computer if you had one. When you have that vision, find the Raise Your Hand tool. I don't see any hands raising yet. There we go. Okay, we got some people raising their hands. Well, I want you to know that I was in an IT department in Indiana around that time, and I remember having a meeting in the IT department, computer science department at that point in time, and a young man came in and he shared with me and the team that he had done something very new. He sent an electronic letter. James, how about you? Do you remember hearing about the first electronic letter?
Unfortunately, yes. I think at the time I had a 300 baud modem, and it took a long time to send and or receive anything through, I think at the time it was AOL was my provider.
Well, you know, it might have been that you had a dumb terminal. The lucky people might have had an actual PC, right? But you're absolutely right that AOL was what was happening back in 1991. The first e-newsletters, the email came out, and I don't know about you, but in that staff meeting where we were dealing with mainframes and systems, I have to confess that I wanted him to hurry and finish his story so we could get back to real technology and real business. So how about you, James? Did you hop on that in the home front, or did you wait like I did? Were you on AOL early?
I was an early adopter with AOL because I was trying to understand this whole, AOL had a big push for the whole group meetings, going into the different groups and posting discussions, and that was something that I was trying to get involved in back then.
Well, good for you. I wish that I could say I was an early adopter back then, but I was a programmer and programming on mainframes, and I just didn't connect with that a consumer side that early. But what I'd like to do now, James, if you go ahead and post that poll, I'd like our audience to respond and tell us if they are early adopters of technology in general, mainstream adopters of technology, or late adopters. I'd like to get to know you just a little bit as we move forward in this presentation.
So
All right,
go
we
ahead
got
and
votes coming in. Please cast your vote. It looks like we're about 50-50 between early and mainstream and 0 late adopters. I'm not surprised with it. We have a little bit of a few late adopters chiming in now.
I think the only reason I'm a late adopter is because I'm waiting for the iPhone to come out with the carrier that I currently use. That's the only reason.
Okay, that's why you're a late adopter now. I understand, and I want them to work out the bugs before I get on very new technology. Okay, we're going to complete the poll? Let's show the results.
There we go.
All right, there we go. We have 47% early adopters, 41% mainstream, and 12% late. And I really am glad that you participated, and I want you to think about this now as we move forward, because when we think about technology, many people still use email as the hub. Some organizations view their website as the primary way that people communicate to them via forms and email forms on the website, or just streaming information back out. And then there are those people, organizations, who have moved into the mobile and the social spaces. So in this poll, I hope that you've solidified where you'd fit in this. Are you still an email hub person, or are you an early adopter in the mobile and social realm? It's really the spectrum that I want us to look at. And it's important not to only know where you are, but to know where your team members are, where your project team members are. Do they like to get communications via email, or are they using the software, social tools that come within software, the chat features, and even the microblogging type features that some software support now internally? So it's important to understand how your team members like to communicate. And then what's a little harder to know, but that we need to research and find out, is where are the stakeholders of a project? Because if we are sending out communications via email and our stakeholders are in the mobile and social space, they may not actually get our communications in a timely manner. So be thinking about that, because it's really, really important that we communicate in the spaces that our people are in, or the people that we need to communicate with are in.
Well, that's a good point, Michelle. I know that our CEO is swamped, and his inbox, I think he showed me the other day, he gets 300 to 400 emails a day, and so he only checks his email every couple of days because it's so intensive. So I've had to find creative ways of getting in front of him. So sending him an email isn't the best way to communicate with my stakeholder.
That's interesting. That's right. And what I've recently, just very recently, I've had multiple people say, the younger people on our board aren't responding to my emails, they won't reply. And I said to one fellow this week, I bet you they don't check their email. I bet they would respond immediately if you did a text message or a social network message. And he goes, wow, I just never thought about it that way. And I really, most of the younger generation people are very, very quick to respond in the text, and also in the Facebook and the LinkedIn spaces and the Twitter spaces. So it's really important to know where our people are, where we are, and how to bring all of that together for successful communication. So let's talk about it. We're going to bridge the subject of communication with team and stakeholders. We want to look at some real-life examples of internal team communications and external stakeholders communications using social media. And finally, I want to help you see 3 ways to save time and manage social communications. Because, James, I don't know about you, but when you talk about social media, sometimes there's just a groan that comes out from people like, I don't have time for this. So one of our key points is how to save time and still use the social media communications. Before I dive in, I do want to send you greetings from New Orleans. That's where I live and work and spend all my time. And if you were here, I would take you to Cafe Du Monde and get you some coffee and beignets, and we would have a great time socializing. My name is Michelle Cullison, and I've been self-employed for 10 years and working in the Internet business world since 1993 when Mosaic and modems were the tools that were cutting edge. So I'm here to talk to you today about using these tools in the project management realm. And what I do for my clients is I help them in on the consulting side to develop strategy, systems so that everything flows smoothly and effectively, so we're posting content once and streaming it everywhere else. And then I help people implement how to get that content, what content to put out, and how to implement a strategy across all the social spaces. So that's what I do. In addition, I do speaking and training to all kinds of groups, association meetings, corporate meetings, and public programs. And today, I'm speaking to you via web to talk about communication in project management. So let's dive in. Public external stakeholder communication is critically important to projects, correct? As is communication within the project team. So we want to look at how new tools, private social media tools and public social media tools can make a difference in your realm. In case you haven't heard, there are some private social networking tools. For example, Ning.com, Ning.com, is a private social networking tool that lets you set up a network that's just for a very targeted audience, and it can be private, meaning the content's not available to people who aren't members of the network, but it's very much like Facebook. You have the pictures, you have the profiles, you have the information sharing and the relationship building. Exactly the same structure as Facebook, but within a very small targeted group. So Ning is one tool that you might want to consider for bringing together your unique group of stakeholders or your project team. Yammer is the Twitter equivalent. It is a microblogging tool that is shared among enterprises, and LinkedIn groups obviously are a tool within LinkedIn that you can create as a private group that's only for a select group of people. We all are aware of Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, the public social tools, and of course they have their place in many project management realms as well. I wanted to take just a quick look at a specific project. Let's say you're going to be working to create efficient commercial buildings and you're part of a project in the sustainability industry. And so let's think about that, because knowing our niche and knowing where our stakeholders are is really important when we're working within social media. We're going to start with LinkedIn and look at the most important part of this tool is building a network strategically, not just adding people. It doesn't matter if you have 500 people if they're not part of your targeted group. So, for example, I want to build a network of people in the industry of green buildings or efficient buildings or sustainability movement. So I can go over here to LinkedIn. I'm going to open the screen for you and show you that the reason you want to build these, wait, there we go, our screen's coming. The reason you want to build your network strategically is because when you add, let's say, 500 people to your network, and you've added people in that industry, then you have at your resource 7 million people, for example, in my case 679 connections, really puts me in a network in the 7 million range. So you can begin to view this network as a great way to do research in your industry, to build collaborative relationships, to do answers and questions so that you can find out specifically what's working for other people who are working on these same kinds of projects, for example. So I want you to know that when you start inviting people, you want to invite people that are in your industry so that it's not any searches that you do here. When you do a search for people or you are posting questions or looking for information, then you can put keywords in, and if your network is full of people in your industry, then there should be a lot of occurrences of the keywords that you're looking for. So while I haven't built a sustainability network, for example, I do want you to see that if I type in that word, I can begin looking for people who are talking about that topic or who are involved in that area, in that industry. So you can see here that there are 71,880 results, and some, it's actually in their title. So that's just an example of why you want to build and invite people to connect with you in your network that are involved in the kind of projects that you do. I'm going to hop back over to the show. So the next thing that you want to think about is using that network for asking questions and getting answers. Now, this screen that you see here is from the answers database on LinkedIn. So if I have 7 million people, or let's say even 50% of the people in my network are involved in this industry, then I can ask questions and get valuable data that is needed to make good decisions in my project. So here's an example of searching the answers database around this particular project topic.
So Michelle, are these answers given by LinkedIn members, or are they over on the answers.com site and they're just republished here?
I am so glad that you asked that. No, LinkedIn has its own answers database, and whenever you ask a question, I'm actually going to back up and show you. There is actually an answers section. If you drop down the More menu here, it's going to be displaying shortly. You can see it now on your screen.
There you go.
If you click the Answers menu button, it will pull up the question and answer database for your LinkedIn network. So if you build into your network connections that you value their knowledge, then your question and answer experiences are going to be very strong, because you will be getting information from people that you have chosen and selected.
I see. Yeah, sure does.
Okay, and how can you find these people? I showed you the search tool. Another way you can find these people is via groups, and that is also a feature of LinkedIn. So you can go into groups and you can search. Let's do commercial efficient buildings this time and see what we get. And I'm searching groups, and these are the groups within LinkedIn. And so what I would do is start identifying. Now these are not very big groups. You can see 8, 7, 6 members. So that's probably not going to be as helpful as getting into, I'm going to search sustainability now in the groups arena. And here you can start seeing that the green movement, while it's not as targeted, obviously, you can open up the opportunity to connect with a lot of people who may be experts in that realm. So here we have 98,000 members in this group. So you can see how, knowing your industry, you can begin to search for other people, sustainability professionals, for example, and we could even get more specific and look for and project, the word project. And you go project managers and on and on and on. So you begin to then join groups, build relationships and connections within LinkedIn, and then once you have your network built, you can begin asking questions and polling the answers of other people's questions to gather more information about your stakeholders, for example. Questions? All right. So questions and answers are a great way to use LinkedIn. And also groups, which I just demonstrated for you live. You can collaborate in groups that exist, but another thing you can do is create your own groups. So you could create private places for your project team to share information and discuss the questions and answers that have been posed on LinkedIn around your project. And you could also create groups of other project managers who are managing similar projects so that you can learn from each other. So that's just an example of ways to use LinkedIn for your project. Finally, you could join existing professional groups. So if you're a member of an organization for project managers that you pay a fee to be a member of, I would strongly encourage that you leverage that membership and join other groups join that group on LinkedIn. Most of the professional organizations have groups on LinkedIn that you can join, and it just gives you more opportunity to take advantage of the networking that you do when you typically go to an annual meeting. But there are many, many of these groups, and they're very large, as you can see here. There's 138,000 on this particular project manager group.
I know, Michelle, one of the groups that I pay to be a membership of, and I go to their annual meeting, they set up a group like this, and what it did this year is it allowed people to facilitate discussions ahead of time and actually set up meetings at the event to be able to talk with the people that are dealing with the same types of issues that you are. So I think what it did is it helped the connections for folks. Because we show up at this meeting far, far away, and nobody knows each other unless you sit at a table with them over a meal. But we were able to make some pre-connections with folks and then schedule meetings when we were actually there on site. So it was very helpful.
I'm glad you shared that, because it does make the actual meeting more effective, and the post-meeting benefit is that you can go home, begin implementing some of what you discussed or learned at the meetings, and continue sharing with that same group of people. I've seen it more and more. This is happening even in the Twitter space, which we won't dive into as deeply today, but across the board, social media has enabled people to collaborate much more effectively and really benefit from others that they typically don't get to see very often. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Now, Facebook isn't typically the project manager's first thought when they think of communicating with their stakeholders, but I have to say that this, your industry in terms of project management is very much alive on Facebook. And what you see here is that there's 43,000 people on the Project Management Institute Facebook page. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the benefits of Facebook pages, but there are some. These Facebook pages are different from traditional Facebook profiles that most people are familiar with. I just want to briefly say that Facebook pages allow any visitor on the web to view the content. So all of these tabs that you see across the top, wall info, photos, events, discussions, these are all accessible to non-Facebook members. So and they're much more findable on the web than your average website is, because Google and Bing and the other search engines rank these pages as relevant to the topic, and they tend to go higher up in a search engine result than a typical website, because the traffic is so high and because it's so it's interactive and there's links back to different things around those keywords. So Facebook pages have a really, really high value when you want to be found on search engines, when you want to reach out to people where they are. We know the whole concept of location, location, location in real estate. The same is true with Facebook pages. If your audience is there, and many of us think they're not, but they are, because with the millions, hundreds of millions of people that are on Facebook, most target audiences have a degree of interaction happening in that space. I do want to clarify that Facebook is now the most visited site since March of last year, topping Google. It used to be Google, and now it's Facebook. So it is a really relevant space, and pages give you that professional presence that profiles didn't.
And one of the things
So
I think you're going to talk about in the
that.
future here is that little statement there underneath the PMI logo that says subscribe via SMS. You're going to talk about that a little later, aren't you?
Well, I'm actually not that. That's the mobile phone space, but I'm going to talk about RSS feeds, which are powerful, and we can use Facebook pages for RSS communication. So, so you can subscribe via RSS, but SMS is a little bit different. So
Text version.
We'll save that for another day, right?
No problem. Yeah.
Okay, so then the other tool in social media that's extremely powerful for project managers and every business entity really is the ability to engage on blogs, because our typical website doesn't allow for interaction. And blogs like Facebook and like LinkedIn, like Twitter and the other social tools, they allow people to talk back to us. And as project managers, that's so critical that we not only push information, but that we also receive it back from our audience and make sure that we are on the same page with them. So this is an example. If you were going to be working on a sustainability project, for example, I would encourage anybody as they're starting a big project or an extensive project that has stakeholders out in the social spaces, and most do, that you explore what blogs are out there and begin commenting and engaging and following those blogs using this little tool called RSS feed, so that you can quickly scan the content that's out there, for example, and begin building a resource of information. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about how you can actually pull in some of these blogs that provide relevant information to your project into your space as an RSS feed, and you become then the aggregator of these resources. We'll talk some more about that in a minute. And finally, we've talked about LinkedIn, we talked about Facebook, we talked about blogs. I mentioned Ning earlier, and I want you to see that you can create your own social network. You could create a Facebook-like environment on Ning.com for like $20 a month or something like that. It's really inexpensive. It was free up until about 3 months ago, but they have now instituted payment, small, so it still is paid feature. And you can create, and as I've put some examples up here, there are 611 Ning networks now around the topic of sustainability, or that occur in results when you search for that. So not only could you create your own, but you could then participate in some of these other social networks in order to get information. And finally, we have microblogs, which is Twitter or Yammer for the project team, the enterprise tool. And these tools allow for really fast interaction, quick communications that get you out of the bog, as you've already mentioned, James, of email communications. When you need a quick answer, these tools are perfect for exchanging information without getting lost in a sea of email. I want to go a little deeper into Yammer, because Twitter isn't typically everybody's favorite tool. That's the one that gets the most kickback when I'm out speaking to audiences. So I wanted to introduce you to Yammer. You can see on your screen that Yammer is used at 100,000 businesses worldwide, and some of those logos are there on your screen. So this isn't just for people in the casual relationships that we sometimes see displayed with too much information on Twitter. This is actually for people who share the same email address domain in an enterprise setting. And so I'm going to take a quick look at a project manager who uses Yammer from AAA, and the case study that goes into more detail on the website. You can actually go to the Yammer website and read this case study, but I wanted you to see firsthand within your own industry that someone is actually using this tool, and that it has the positive benefit of keeping remote workers and people across the organization in different locations more engaged and connected to each other so that they know what is going on in the company, which is so crucial. Let's take a quick look then at the results and benefits of this AAA firm using Yammer. The first benefit is that it's faster. It's much faster. Questions and answers are solved in a fraction of the time that it would take using email. Secondly, it does really connect a dispersed workforce. In this case, they say that employees from 3 states are kept in the loop and connected and empowered with the information they need. And then finally, it lets people share opinions and advice across all levels of the organization. So we've taken a quick look at the private tools, Ning, Yammer, LinkedIn groups, and public tools like Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I also want to make sure that you listen. I don't know if anybody has heard the term that you shouldn't actually dive into or the thought that you shouldn't dive into social media until you've listened first. So I couldn't do a talk on social media without giving you some tools, recommending some tools that help you be a good listener in the social spaces. So there are ways to listen on groups, blogs, and profiles. We've talked about that by joining them and making connections. But there are some other tools, such as search.twitter.com, that let you actually see what the conversation is now around a particular topic. So you could, for example, search sustainability or efficient buildings in twitter.com and see if those conversations are being had now. There are also monitoring software companies, and one of many examples is this Tracker, which is a reputation monitoring system that lets you put out particular keywords that this software will scan the web looking for these conversations, and you can be aware that people are talking about your company, that they're talking about the issues around your project, those kinds of things, so that you can then enter the conversation and respond appropriately. Google has some really great free tools that you can use, and they're not quite as extensive as the paid tools, but they search the Google spaces. So google.com/alerts will let you actually, and I'm going to take you over here because this is a great little tool that lets you do market research for free and find out some really good information. So for example, I could put sustainability and green commercial buildings, for example, and I could ask that Google send me an email that searches everything on the web, or just news, or just videos, or just discussions, and I could have them send me information once a day, and I typically do that for about a week, and then once I get familiar with the conversations that are happening, I will move it to once a week instead of once a day. And then I just put my email address in there, and I create an alert, and it lets me get a handle on the conversations that are being had around a particular industry or topic. You can also do this for a company name, and it becomes a very powerful way to listen on the web to what people are saying. Questions?
So what's going to be returned with the Google Alerts are links to basically anything that shows up, right? Articles, discussions, so white papers, kind of the gamut, right?
Yes, and it's great because it gives you the first two. If it's text-based, it gives you the first 2 or 3 lines of content, so you can quickly evaluate, is this something I really need to look at or not? So it's like having a part-time research assistant who is scouring the web for information you need to look at, and they send you a report, and then you just go look at the ones that you think are really relevant.
Great.
Google Blog Search lets you search just the blog spaces to find where people are talking about your industry. And then there's also a great tool that I just encourage you to explore, and that is Google Analytics, because what that does is you can see if you have a project website, if you have a large project that has a public website that you're keeping people informed about the state of your project, you could install this analytics tool and know where the traffic is coming from to your website, and that becomes very valuable, and it's free and very quick and easy to set up. so that you can see that whether your information is really being accessed. And I want to clarify that Google Analytics does not track hits, which is programmatic visitors, as well as real visitors, but it tracks page loads, who's actually coming from Facebook to view this page, or who's coming from a particular website or a Google search to this particular web page, and which pages were accessed. So you know if your resources are being utilized, and in some cases by whom they're being utilized. So if you have a post on a company website, then and all the traffic is coming from that link over to your website to get the update, then you know that that link is working for you. If nothing's happening, you need to get them to move your link to a more public place so you get more traffic. And the Google Analytics also works with email marketing and some other tools as well, so that you can test and measure the success of your communication. But these are all free. All of these Google tools are free, which make them very great listening tools that fit with any budget, right? Now, the bulk of the real big takeaway that I want you to see today, I hope I've stretched you a little bit in terms of seeing how these tools can be used, but these time savers are typically the things that people say, okay, I know there's value, but I just don't have the time. And these time savers I'm going to share with you are usually the tips that make people take the plunge. So I hope that will encourage you to do the same, because these are such valuable tools. We're going to talk about APIs briefly. We're going to talk about RSS feeds, my favorite, I have to say. And we're going to talk about a unique software tool called Hootsuite that's really an example of a lot of other tools that are out there, but it is currently one of the ones that keeps maturing at a rapid rate that lets you manage your social media and save time. So let's dive in. You've probably all worked with APIs. Some of you probably literally if you're in the technology realm of project management, but you've all seen it, and I put it here as an example. This little login with Facebook button, this is actually an API that says that, that this New York Times website can interact with the Facebook login, so that people can log in, and when they make a comment on the New York Times site, it actually will show up in their Facebook profile. So there's that engagement between one program and another. So APIs can help really strengthen the use of social media in the project space. Let's talk about how APIs do that. I'm going to give you an example. One of the most popular email marketing tools, but which can also just be used to getting emails out to a group of people that need not just marketing space, but getting information out to people, a group of people. This tool, MailChimp, is a great example of a tool that maximizes the API capability. MailChimp will let you integrate your database, your email list of contacts in MailChimp can be integrated with all of these programs that you currently see on your screen. There's an API that you can plug in, and you can then transfer those contact lists and communicate with these other software programs in a variety of ways. In just a matter of minutes, you can plug it in and make that connection. So I'm not talking about writing APIs. I'm talking about utilizing APIs to connect your email marketing communication system, and we don't even have to use the word marketing, but the email list communication system with Facebook, for example, or with Ning Network, for example, some of the tools I've already talked about, with Twitter. And you can begin to see how these APIs will let you communicate once and transfer that information across the spaces. So, for example, I can send out an email communication using MailChimp, and here's an example of how it automatically, that same communication is posted here. This little icon of the monkey is the MailChimp icon saying that this post was done via MailChimp to Facebook. So that was the power of the API. It took me a 5-minute setup, but it let me communicate once and share that content to Facebook and to Twitter, and it could go to Ning and to some other places. So you see the value of posting once and streaming across the social spaces to get the word out, communicate effectively.
You know, you mentioned it only took you 5 minutes. The word API sometimes scares folks that aren't programmers. How difficult are most of those APIs to implement, Michelle?
It took me 5 minutes to connect my MailChimp account to my Facebook account and my MailChimp account to my Google Contacts. There's the program itself, MailChimp, gives you a string of characters that is your API connector, your API code. And these programs that are meant to work together, you take that code and just paste it into the API, I will call it the connector field in the other program, and then they talk because that's your unique code from my account in one software package to my account in another. So when I talk about API, I'm not talking that we write an API. I'm talking that we utilize these social media tools that other people have developed with APIs already existing. We just have to plug them in to say, Michelle Cullison's MailChimp wants to talk to her business page on Facebook.
Great.
Does
Sounds
that
easy
make
enough.
sense?
Yeah.
5 minutes, I'm telling you, 5 minutes to get the two to happen together.
Fantastic.
The other piece that, that MailChimp has here that is an API that you don't have to do anything for in this case is that currently there's something called Social Pro that's a feature. And this is just an example, and I'm telling you, the social spaces are built to be cross-referenced all over the place. And it's wonderful because you're not recoding. In HTML, you'd have to write the code and then post it in 25 different places if you wanted it to be in 25 different places. And that HTML being traditional website coding. But with social spaces and RSS feeds and APIs, there are just these natural technologies that let us store once and stream many. So in this case, Social Pro is a feature of MailChimp that lets you actually, once you enter your contact list into that system, it will find your people and actually show their profile pics within your email list. So you can see what your email list subscribers look like. A little Big Brother-ish, I don't know if you feel that way, but it's also very powerful to start seeing where do they live, what is their social profile connection, and you could know that if you have 75% of your list is subscribed to Twitter, then, hey, I perhaps should be there. So it becomes a really powerful tool to know your audience and know where they are, and it's all because of these relationships from one program to another. Questions?
Oh, I think folks are pretty intense on watching your presentation today, Michelle.
Okay. Now I'm going to introduce to you my favorite technology tool called RSS feeds, really simple syndication, and I'm not a fan of it because I can subscribe to RSS. You'll see that a lot, subscribing to RSS. I'm a fan of it because I need to get communication out from one place to many places across the web. And as project managers, you probably have the same problem, that you need to make sure that every one of your stakeholders and project team members gets the information that you're communicating and can respond back to you. And RSS feeds let you do this beautifully. So while I'm not subscribing to RSS feeds, and I don't use RSS feeds readers very often, they're RSS readers, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about as a manager of communications, I use this technology to stream information from one place to another. Here's what I mean. I'm going to show you. I have a blog called socialmediaexplained.com, and when I post on my blog, I have set up RSS feeds to go to Facebook pages, that's my business presence, Facebook profile, that's my personal presence where I have a lot of people who've heard me speak that join with me there on Facebook, personal. I have my LinkedIn personal profile, which is Michelle Cullison on LinkedIn. I have my LinkedIn company profile, Daystar New Media, and I have my Twitter profile. Okay, so I've named probably about 5 or 6 different places. In addition, I have daystarnewmedia.com. So I'm talking about websites and social presences. I have set up in just a very limited amount of time, could probably do it in about an hour and a half, set up connections between this blog and all of these other profiles and websites. And when I post a blog once, I don't have to get that content anywhere else. It automatically, because of RSS feeds into all of my other places. I'll show you what that looks like. It feeds, I don't do anything. It shows up after I post on my website. It shows up after I post on LinkedIn and on Facebook pages, personal and company. That is powerful communication. And from an IT background and knowing about databases and things like that, I really, really am totally opposed to posting and publishing information more than once, because we know from a project management standpoint that if you have to update 5 different sites with your information and you've realized 2 days into it that you made a mistake, having to go back and repost all of that information is very time consuming. So we want to store once so that we make sure that there's less of a chance of error, and basically we want to be more effective as well. We want to save time. So RSS feeds let us store once and stream everywhere else. Most social media tools support RSS feed technology. So there are little apps, I'm going to talk to you about that. Little apps, oops, I went the wrong way, that let you do this streaming. I'm going to show you what those are. On LinkedIn, there's an app called Blog Link that if you just install it, again, it takes all of 5 minutes to say yes. On the apps menu button within LinkedIn profiles, you can add a blog link, and forever your blog will flow in there and you don't have to do anything else. On Facebook, there are hundreds of different ways to do it. One of them is social RSS. You can install that little app on your Facebook page, and forever it will be polling and it will be looking at your blog feed and going, did she post a new article? If she did, I'm going to stream it over to Facebook for her, and I don't ever have to do it again. The same is true on LinkedIn company pages. You just give your company page your blog link. So blogs can be what I call the social media hub for getting article bites rather than opposed to Twitter, short things, out to your audiences. So I just really encourage you to explore using blogs as a way to stream information from one place to many. But all of the tools support RSS. Now, back to our sustainability model, RSS feeds also let you become the resource within an industry. So if you did create a Ning network, for example, you could subscribe to the feeds of, let's say you pick the top 5 blogs in the industry that are talking about sustainability, and you RSS feed those things over into your network so that people don't have to go to 5 places to get that information. They come to your site to get the information. You become the resource. You become the aggregator, and it becomes a very powerful position and lets you lead the conversation. So that's another benefit to RSS feeds. And here's the example of if you have a Ning network, you can pull it all into that network. You can do this, though, on a Facebook page or on a LinkedIn profile as well. So Ning network would be a great way to pull all of those blog posts into that one space so that everybody can reference them. Questions? All right. Well, we're going to dive into the social media dashboard called Hootsuite. Now, this is one example. There are many, many programs out there that let you manage your social media presence, because one of the pushbacks is, all right, I'm a project manager. While I'd like to utilize LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Ning, and all of these tools, frankly, I don't have the time. I imagine if I asked for a raise of hands here, I would see a lot of them. But I want to show you how you can use Hootsuite to solve the time problem when you're engaging on multiple social networks. So you can see that Hootsuite is used by a variety of larger enterprises and by small businesses as well. But here's what it looks like. You can see that there are tabs for different things, and there are news feeds. And the news feeds are what people in your network are saying. And Hootsuite lets you create a news feed for LinkedIn, a news feed for Facebook, and a news feed for Twitter, and many other things as well. But the beauty of that is you log in once and you manage all of the social networks, not from Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and logging in 5 times, but logging into Hootsuite.com to manage all of your communications across the social networks. Now, how do you do that? Well, you have to set it up. Just like I've mentioned several times throughout this presentation, there's a little bit of setup required. So you would actually give Hootsuite your login to Twitter, your login to Facebook pages, the business side, your login to LinkedIn personal, your profile, and so on and so forth. And once you do that, you then have the ability to send out communications. Everybody has heard of status updates on Facebook and status updates on Twitter, tweets in that realm. LinkedIn, you can also do status updates. Within Hootsuite, you could type in this white space that you see on my screen, right in here, you can type in your communication, and over here on the right, you could select if you want it to go to Facebook, Twitter, and let me just be clear here. If you have 5 pages as a company that you're maintaining and there's 5 locations, so you created 5 Facebook pages, you could select all these and communicate. You can do your status update to multiple networks from one location. So the other feature is you can obviously, as you see on my screen, schedule those communications. So what I recommend to my small businesses is I recommend that you log in 15 minutes a day, Monday through Thursday, for example, and you read what your network is saying. So you can see that there's content flowing in here, and these are the people that I'm connected with on Facebook, for example. So I would respond and listen and talk back, and then I can schedule messages to go out the rest of the week. I can schedule links back to my website. I can promote events. I can plan meetings. I can give updates to projects. So in this space, I can schedule, and you don't see it here, but most recently, this tool has enabled a batch capability, meaning you could upload in an Excel file all of your status updates for the month. So that becomes a very helpful tool. So I'm logging into one place and streaming my communications out to multiple channels. Hootsuite also supports teams, and as project managers, you know that teams are so important, so this enables you to share that space with other team members, and some people might answer physical questions about your project. Other people might handle the technology questions, so you can divide and conquer and co-manage your social media presence, and even assign projects to people. And here's an example of that, where you could see a post on a website, and you as the project manager could assign a particular team member to handle that communication. And again, you can see these tabs that represent the Twitter space, a private Twitter, a Facebook, and a LinkedIn. So that's the way that you can read all of your social networks from one location and assign tasks to the right team member.
Michelle, we've got somebody asking a question about Hootsuite. Does it only attach to the social media realm, or does it also send other types of communications like emails or SMSs or something?
It is strictly social media. In fact, it's labeled a social media management tool.
Okay.
So it is a dashboard that lets you manage social media. I like this slide because I just think it's, especially if you are in an international enterprise, this is really amazing that it will support that cross-platform, cross-languages.
How's your Japanese, Michelle?
I have no idea what that's saying. I hope it's good.
I used to live in Japan, but it's been too many years.
Oh, okay. Well, I should have had you interpret. I didn't know that about you. So, but I think that's a great feature in today's world, because we all know that it's getting smaller and smaller, and we work on international teams many times and have them communicate with us in our language. But it may be that this tool could help us, reach across the other way. There also, within Hootsuite, there is the ability to track results, which we all know is extremely critical to project management, that we know if we're being effective or not. So we can see, how our communications are doing across the different spaces. So I do thank you for joining us today for Social Media for Project Managers, and I do invite each of you on the call today to connect with me on LinkedIn or visit Social Media Explained or my page on Facebook. Any of these ways, I'd love to have you in my network. You could also sign up for my weekly report, Social Media Explained, and that's on my website, socialmediaexplained.com. Feel free to join me there. And at this point, we're going to open up the lines for more questions.
Fantastic. Well, as Michelle said, we've got a couple of minutes left. Let's go ahead and dive in and get to your questions. Some of you have submitted those. Michelle, we've got a question from Steve. He says it's in reference to LinkedIn profiles, company profiles instead of personal profiles, do those support RSS feeds?
They absolutely do. It's not with an app like I showed you in the presentation. It's actually a field in the company profile. You are allowed to enter one feed, and it's a great way to keep people current on what's going on in your company.
Our next question is actually a kind of a generic question by several folks. Their companies don't allow them to visit some of these social network sites because they consider those anti-productive. What advice would you give those folks with trying to convince, encourage, demonstrate value to their companies for these social media tools?
Well, I think it has to do with educating the decision makers about the need in a particular division of the company. I understand clearly that some roles within a company shouldn't be on social media during the day, but some people, if they're in public relations or marketing or business development and sales, customer service, those roles are critical in terms of maintaining communications, and social media is such a wonderful way to reach out, for organizations to reach out and be accessible and be available to their clients. So those educating the decision makers that maybe perhaps it shouldn't be across the board open, but that they're missing a great opportunity, and demonstrate some of these tools that I showed you today about how they can benefit business and are critical to the success of the company.
Good point. Yeah, it always helps when you bring a new idea forward if you've got a case study or some significant data. We had one of our presenters last week on how to turn around failing projects was talking about when you come to the stakeholder, the person who has the best data wins.
Right.
And, yeah, absolutely. And it's not about quantity of data; it's about having good data. And so you need to be able to support your assertion that this social media tool could actually help the company. I know from my perspective as a marketing director at a company, it's pretty easy to see a return for the social media aspects. There's a lot of connections that get made through social media. It's not difficult for me to see that. The only trade-off on that is certainly seeing actual dollars, right? It's easy to put a thumb on the productivity, on the connections, on communication. Those are things that certainly add value. Well, we've got a few more minutes left, and we've got some more questions coming through. I would encourage you to continue to submit your questions. If we don't get a chance to answer your question live, we'll see if we can get Michelle to respond by email and maybe respond to your questions offline since we have your email address. Let's see if we can get to one more question here before we run out of time, Michelle. Here's a question from Daniel. Daniel says, you talk about blog link and social RSS apps for Facebook and LinkedIn. How can you find other apps, and what's the typical cost of these apps?
Good question. And right now, majority of apps have a free version, and both LinkedIn and Facebook have apps directories within them. However, I have found that some companies actually, like MailChimp, for example, and there's another great Facebook app producer called Involver.com, that you actually find those tools on their website. And following me, for example, I'll keep you posted on those kinds of tools that are available that are really good tools. And you know, when things are free, you sometimes have to work through some of the bugs. And now that some of these apps are maturing, it's like social RSS. I use that as an example. They now have a paid version as well. So then you get some support to go along with it. And these, you know, I can say today that the app directories are within Facebook and LinkedIn. And probably in a month, I'll be able to give you some more insight into where to get apps because it's all changing so rapidly.
Fantastic. Yeah, updates would be helpful, and it will be good to have you back to give us updates on how the social media arena is changing since you've got the finger on the pulse. Well, we promised to keep you at just under an hour to make sure that you were productive, and we're at the top of the hour now, so we're going to have to close out our time. But I do want to thank Michelle for joining us today and being an expert in the social media realm, helping us to understand how to utilize these tools to better our careers, to better our projects, and eventually to make our projects more successful. We appreciate you being with us today, Michelle.
Thanks, James.
Absolutely. And we as a company, what do we do? Journix created the world's first web-based timesheet, and we actually help you to be able to invest your time wisely. And the way we do that is with timesheet tools, as well as helping you to manage resources across your projects to optimize, figure out who's doing what, when, and where. If you have interest in that, feel free to visit our website. We've got some product demos and some information we can provide for you. Another thing that I think will help you significantly is we've got this webinar series that Michelle was presenting on today that is ongoing this semester. We've got some great external speakers. I had a talk yesterday from a gentleman who had been in the business for 30 years, previously with the CIA. Fantastic presenters who have lots and lots of experience. I would encourage you to visit our website there, projectexecute.com, and in the upper right-hand corner it says the 2011 webinar series. Our current webinars are things like PMO strategies, how to become and remain relevant, how to implement an enterprise PMO, what does it take to be a great project manager, 3 critical components of project success. The one I was talking about the other day, the gentleman that used to work for the CIA talked about how to be a great project manager. So I would encourage you to enhance your skill set as a project manager. Visit the website, sign up for some of those other webinars. PDUs are offered for those as well. Again, we appreciate your participation today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. We wish you a productive day. Use your time wisely and push those projects across the finish line to success. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.